This is episode number 45 of the Feed Me, Fuel Me podcast with our special guest, Carter Thomas, owner of Blue Cloud Solutions. Welcome to the Feed Me, Fuel Me podcast. My name is Jeff Thornton, alongside my co-host, Michael Anders. Each week, we bring you an inspiring person or message related to our three pillars of success: manifestation, business, fitness, and nutrition. Our intent is to enrich, educate, and empower our audience to take action, control, and accountability for their decisions. Thank you for allowing us to join you on your journey. Now let's get started. We would like to thank our sponsor, XD Fitness. XD is the leading company in Kevlar-based fitness equipment. XD has revolutionized the industry with their fitness equipment, including medicine balls, kettlebells, sandbags, and lifting accessories, such as lifting belts, jump ropes, and wrist wraps, all made of DuPont Kevlar. Go check them out at xdfit.com and join the Kevlar movement.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 45 of the Feed Me, Fuel Me podcast. Mike Anders here with my co-host, Jeff Thornton.
What up?
And I'll let you run the intro today, man. This is your guy.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah. My man Carter. So today, guys, we have a special guest, my business coach, Carter Thomas, owner of Blue Cloud Solutions. And a little bit backstory on Carter. I discovered Carter back in, I think, late 2012 when I moved out to Philadelphia. I was working for this company called SAP. And then I ran across a blog of his. It was talking about pricing apps and the amount of money it would cost to build like a gaming app compared to a huge app. So it just went from a simple app of $2,000 to an expensive app of $100,000. But I ran across his blog, and he was so open with all of the advice and tips that he was going through, giving case studies of exactly what he was working on. And so I followed him from about 2012 and then just ended up hiring him this past year in December. And he just has an incredible journey, very, very awesome guy, and we're just interested in getting his story. So Carter, welcome to the podcast, and thanks for joining us, brother.
Thank you, guys. This is a pleasure to be here. I'm super excited.
Yeah, us too, man.
Most definitely, brother. I mean, Jeff has just explained in gruesome detail, behind the scenes, a lot of the things that you guys are working on, and the his goals and his visions from a professional and a personal level, and how you're helping get that ball rolling. And like you said, prior to getting this thing rolling today, what are the fewest steps that Jeff can take to get from point A to whatever his point B, C, D, and Z are? So we'll dive into that here in a second. But for people who don't know who you are, where you come from, or what you do, you shed some light on that. What's your, what's your journey, man?
Totally. I will give you a medium length version of this, because I do think there's some good stories in there that I want to make sure you guys and the viewers hear all about. I went to school in Maine, a college in Maine. I should say I grew up in a town that was very evenly divided. Half of it was the suburbs, half of it was farms. And I went to a public high school, and it was just the ultimate melting pot of everyone you can imagine. Friday night football was like the biggest thing in our town. Loved it. We had a huge sports program, and it was a pretty big school. And I graduated. I was a very, very competitive athlete as a swimmer. And I went to school in Maine, in a very small school that was much more academic. And, it was okay, but I didn't love it. I just kind of felt like I was always a little bit of wasn't really hitting my stride. And I later realized that that's because as a problem solver, business was really what I was stoked about. And at a liberal arts, small academic institution, it's like there's not a whole lot of that going on. So I graduate. No idea what I'm doing. Like, no idea, not even thinking about it. And by all stretches, I should have been like having daily panic attacks, and I wasn't, which is like even more mind-blowing that I wasn't even thinking about what I should be doing. And so I was sleeping on the floor of my brother's apartment, who lived in a town called Portland, Maine, which is kind of like the biggest town in Maine, which is still a joke. And I was sleeping in a sleeping bag, out of a duffel bag from clothes I still have from college, with one of those, those like Asian dividers you put up in a room. And I was in the corner where the dining room should have been. And I had like blocked that off. And I was landscaping during the day. And then I would go surfing every day at this local beach with like 3-foot waves, nothing big. And then at night, I would just go like rage every night, just go party and whatever. So it's just like, that's where I was. Okay. Like I am not being, oh yeah, when I was 18, I had some amazing mentors. No, dude, like I was like nothing. Right. Now I went to, I had a lot of fire. I had a lot of energy. I just didn't know I didn't have any direction, especially in a place like Maine. So for anybody listening right now, if you're if you don't have to be in San Francisco or LA or New York, like it doesn't matter if you're somewhere that's not the hub. All right. You can start wherever you are. And there's a lot that you can do with that. So through this process, I slowly got a little bit more experience. I worked with my brother for a year. We organized triathlons. And then I slowly moved into this startup, which was like a online pet e-commerce company in 2008 or 2007, which by all stretches should have been like $1 billion company. And long story short, that did not become $1 billion company. In fact, it became a $0 company. And I left in 2010 with this idea that I could do this all better than myself. Like I didn't believe in the corporate structure. I didn't feel good about it. I wasn't fulfilled. I didn't know where I was going. And I left to go start an online company, specifically an email marketing company in Portland, Maine in 2010. Now, the amount of customers that want somebody with no experience to do just email marketing in Portland, Maine is about I think there's one person who might be a target audience of that. So I quickly realized that there was no way I was going to make money doing this. And the only thing people would pay me for was to build websites. And the problem was I had no idea how to build websites. I had absolutely no clue what to do. And so I did what any scrappy entrepreneur would do, where I went and bought like 6 cases of Red Bull and locked myself in a closet in my brother's office and learned how to at least bolt it together. Like I didn't know how to code. I just like whatever I could do, to the point where people were still saying no to me, but I would then go out and find people that didn't have websites yet. I would build them websites like during the night. And then the next morning, specifically restaurants, I would wait until there was a shift break, right? Typically about 2 to 4 o'clock, or in the morning, sometimes it's like 10 to 11 or something like that. And I would walk in with my laptop open and I would go to their URL and there would be my site for their company already built. And I would pitch them and say, hey, I've already done all the work. I just want $300 for this. And like half the people would look at me and be like, this is amazing. Like done, and half the people were like, I'm calling the police. You stole all our shit. Like, and it was amazing because like, if I didn't sell it, I wasn't going to pay my rent. This was like, this absolutely had to happen. I quit my job. I had no money still. I had no idea what I was doing, but it was do or die. So I quickly learned how to sell and how like people say no to you, doesn't matter. Like you got to go back the next day and negotiate and make it happen. Through this process, it eventually started to get better. I learned what I was doing, and I realized that lawyers were the only people that had money. But I also realized that all the lawyer websites really fell into like 3 categories. Like there's 3 main design styles that every lawyer wanted. And when I was making these pitches, I'd be like, oh, you can do this customization, you can do this customization, all this. And they'd be like, yeah. And then I'd pull up some lawyer in Georgia that had one of the 3 templates I knew they wanted. And they're like, dude, yes, that's exactly what I want. And so it dawned on me that why am I trying to customize all this stuff? Why am I building all these? Like, why don't I just go get these 3 templates and make the few modifications? And that's what these guys want. And they'll pay premium price for it. And through that, I started to become very, very systematic, created this like automated machine of building these 1 of 3 templates. The lawyers loved it, and I eventually got some big clients. This translated into this whole mentality of systems of okay, why am I building something from the ground up? Why don't I just go find something that someone's already done and package it up for my customer and do it that way? And that's how the app thing really got started. As I was doing the lawyer thing on the side, I was realizing I'm not that stoked about people calling me at 4 a.m. From Kentucky telling me that they need a typo fixed on the blog. Like, that gets old really fast. And no matter what they're paying you, it just gets old. And the digital products with apps, that was really exciting to me. And so I would work on the lawyer stuff all day, and then at night I would mess around with this app thing. And the exact same thing happened. I tried to do a customization, spent way too much money, launched it, and it bombed. I tried that again, it bombed. And then I started studying the apps in the store, and I said, why don't I just create something that looks like what people already want? And all of a sudden, it did really well. And I was like, well, why don't I make another one of these, but with a different design? And that did really well too, because people wanted that template. They wanted that style. And all I had to do was create new versions of it. And so you can imagine that this accelerated just as quickly, but there's no service side of it. So there's no ceiling on how many apps or how much growth you can get with that. And it very quickly eclipsed the service business in terms of my growth. And that got me to where Jeff was mentioning. I was blogging about my journey, and in late 2012, things started to totally explode, both from a traffic standpoint and from a business standpoint. I stopped doing the lawyer thing. I started selling some companies, and the rest is really just pressing the gas on that exact process, just identifying things that work, pulling out the parts that obviously work for other industries, and then applying them to new industries in a very systematic way. And I think that in business, especially in the marketing world, which most of your listeners are probably most interested in, that is the name of the game. It's, why reinvent the wheel? Just go find something that's already working and just apply it to your life and to your niche. So, that's been the ride so far. And now I manage a ton of properties. Most of them are forward facing that I'm involved with. Blue Cloud's probably the biggest at this point, where I teach people not about how to code or anything, but more about how to build a business, how to get in the App Store in a smart way, how to think about your customers, how to listen to what they're asking for, improve the apps, how to hire developers to go do it for you and so you can go and run the business, things like that. And then there's also all these other kind of random projects that I really take that fundamental of what works and applying it to new industries. And I'm always just endlessly interested in this stuff. And so I'll go try it in yoga or drones or, filmmaking or, anything you can think of. I'll just spend a weekend and, get my trusty case of Red Bull out and let it rip.
That's sick, man. My bad.
That's awesome, man.
And I remember going back to the whole reskinning, the template model. That's when I discovered you, and I remember I saw your website. And you were selling, I can't remember the template, but it was that puzzle template where you uncover the puzzle and you have to guess the secret word or whatever. But that experience of you had a walkthrough tutorial, and you showed exactly how to reskin and get it into the store. That was the first app I ever launched, and that was in 2013. And the amount of value provided, it's free knowledge, was incredible to me, because before that, I was looking at courses on how to launch an app. And like you said, it was for an expensive price, like $5,000 to, get a development team and this. But then I bought this piece of code off of you for, I think, $500, and then made several reskins off of that. And I mean, I didn't have major success on this part, but the learning process of getting an app in a store, you sort of created a new generation of app developer, app companies from yourself. And wouldn't you describe yourself as one of the pioneers of the reskin game? And I think I've heard that a lot when it comes to your name, and that's what people really know you for.
Totally. I think that there's a few things about that. I think that it's one of those things where sometimes I definitely regret not having known how the internet marketing game works. right? Because if I had known back in 2012 how some of these guys can launch products and how they can package up information, and they do very, very well financially, and they also deliver results. Like, that's a huge part of it. Mm-hmm. But if I had known all that, based on like the amount of success I was having, I probably could have made a huge sum of money. But I also wouldn't have had the community and the brand and the experience that I got. So I think that while selfishly it would have been nice, I think the way it worked out was actually probably better, because I didn't know that you're not supposed to share that much. I didn't know that you're not supposed to give away all your secrets for free and then you just sell the tools. Mm-hmm. Like, nobody told me that that's how you play the long game. That's not how you do the short game. And because of that, the traffic grew, the community grew, and I loved it. I mean, I loved waking up and being able to share that information, because people would email me back and just say, dude, this works. Like, this really helped me. I've been developing an app, so I spent all this money and I tried this, and all of a sudden, I got something that actually made me, provided revenue so that I can grow a business or pay my rent or whatever it may be. And that was a huge, when you do something on the internet and people email you that you've never met before, and they tell you that you're impacting their life, that moment is very powerful. And I think that it's hard to explain that to somebody unless they've had that experience, like they've been on the internet and written something or done something. But it's addictive too. It's also like, man, how can I stop helping people? How can I stop doing this? And I think that's kind of what it's all about, right? Like, that's kind of the fuel that just keeps it going. But yeah, back to what you said, I think I was one of the first people to do it, but I think that there was a lot of other people doing it, but they definitely did not tell anybody about it. They were like, I'm not telling. And I mean, I would go in the store and I would hear about some of these people that were doing it super gangster, right? Like, all underground, like massive systems of people, software running all over the place. And you could see their portfolios spreading like crazy. And I kind of knew what I was doing. I was just the only one who was like, hey guys, why isn't anybody just talking about this obvious money-making opportunity without sounding like I was like trying to shove it down people's throats?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you've pretty much created an entire business model around the concept of not reinventing but repurposing. Is that probably the condensed elevator speech of it all?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that and this all comes from experience, and it's also reading a bunch of books and listening to a lot of people that have been in business a lot longer than I have and have had much different success. But it never seems to, I've never heard anybody be like, don't look at what already works out there. Like, try to make it your own. Try to start from scratch. Like, that, it's just, you don't hear that. You hear people say, find things that work and then repackage it in a new way. Mm-hmm. If you want to make a $10 billion company, yeah, you might need to think about something that's never been done before, like for Uber or whatever. But even that is sort of connecting two big ideas to create something that's never been done before. So yeah, everything I do in business, everything I've taught in business always comes down to, I had success with it in in one industry, and now I'm going to try to do that exact same thing in a new industry, and I'm going to see if that works. And I want to make sure it does work before I teach anybody about it, because otherwise that's not a very good business model to get into. So right. Yeah, that's really what it's all about.
So before you create a curriculum around these processes, you spend a lot of time on your own creating proof of concept instead of relying on theory. Well, if it worked here, this is why it could work here, but it's not substantiated yet.
Yeah, exactly. I think that. So I worked with Jeff met my buddy Matt Clark, who owns an amazing company called Amazing.com, actually. and he's been very successful. And I launched a course with him last January, and I met on his staff. He has 7 retired teachers who are their entire job is to audit the instructional design of their courses. So their courses are dialed on how to get you to learn stuff. And the head teacher told me that it all comes down to this idea of show people, don't tell people. And I think that, especially when you're trying to teach people something, and when it comes to education, which is a lot of what I sell, products or my blog or whatever, the more I can just show people not only what's happened, but how to do it. Like I can open up Facebook Audience Insights, or I can open up Facebook ads, or I can open up Photoshop or whatever and just say, this is me doing it. Here's how you do it. Just do this, but with your own thing. And this is the best. This is how it works. Because then people just, oh, I see it. I can do that too. Versus if you throw a lot of concepts or tell people, hey, this is what you should do, people just naturally kind of say, well, which one of those, what's the next step? Mm-hmm. What do I do right now? Mm-hmm. And I think it's really important to be able to break it all down into here's what you do right now, so that you can, make something happen.
Yeah. It's really interesting that you've built what you've built, doing it the way that you've done it, because as, we've created our wish lists of guests for the shows to come. The folks that are on the tech side of the house are exactly in that camp that you were talking about, where they hold everything tight to the vest and they don't want to talk about any of it. What within the tech industry, the app space, why do you think that is?
That's a really good question. I think that a lot of it is I read this awesome article that is about this. I read this awesome article the other day about this, self-help, like a life coach, and how she realized that often people that are life coaches are the ones that need coaching the most, right? And like that, it's just such an indictment on that. And I think that often in marketing, there's a lot of talk about things like mindset, fear, failure, all that. And it can often be an indictment on the more you present yourself as it's going to be okay. It's kind of like creating a wall between you and what's really going on. And I think in the digital tech online world, and this is obviously not a generalization, I think that there is this undercurrent of, if I give away too much, people are going to steal my ideas. People are going to steal my code. People are going to steal what I'm doing. And there's not this inherent faith that some people will do that, but on the whole, people are good people and they will respect you. They understand that you're trying to help them. They're not going to screw you over. And it's a bit of a leap of faith, but it's also, it requires getting creative with your business models, right? Like I said, if you do hold it close to the chest and you don't tell anybody, you can make that a paywall, right? Hey, if you want this information, you got to pay for it. And that's your business model. Versus if you give it all away, you now have to put out way more content. You have to have things like live events. You have to create way more products that are more advanced for people that are higher end or whatever it may be. And that's just a lot of work. And a lot of people just don't want to open up Pandora's box in that sense, where they may get long lifetime customers, but that also means they got to be in the game for 5 years. And I think for a lot of people who get into this business, they want to just get in, create something automated, and get checks every month, which who doesn't want that? Mm-hmm. But in reality, if you want to make something real and the actual financial freedom you want, you do have to invest at least a couple of years. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, there's just so much on the internet now. If you want to stand out, you got to be great, and you got to be willing to do the things that most other people are not willing to do. So I think that's a big part of it. I think it's just the old school model is don't tell, pay to hear the answers, and sell sell the I know something you don't know, and like if you hear this, like your life's going to change, right? We've all watched Tai Lopez, we get it, right? And it works. I mean, like, it's very on a big level, but kind of talking like back to what I said before, it doesn't have to be like that. You can write your own rules. There are certain fundamentals that do make you money, but you can write your own rules on how you run your business and how you work with your customers.
Interesting. And well, because being part of the Blue Cloud group, I've been seeing how you've been able to expand it just by building such a tight-knit community of people who are open to share their ideas, their struggles, and their successes. Where does that mindset come from for you? Because I find it hard for people to be open and share things. Starting out initially, what gave you the power and the idea to start sharing your ideas and not be so close to the vest, so to speak? Because that's a tough thing to do. Is it just the way, like, your experience growing up from your family, or what caused that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was my family and the how I grew up. And I'm so fortunate to have the family I have, and to have the people in my life that I've had, not only my family, but teachers, coaches, mentors, friends, everything. And it's just always been a huge part of my experience, that like part of being a good, not a good, I shouldn't say that, part of being part of just being a person is giving back. And when I was 7 years old, my dad would pull me out of bed at 7 o'clock in the morning, and my brother and I would go down to Habitat for Humanity and like hammer nails and drag lumber and put up these houses, and go on Wednesday we go to the soup kitchen, on Sunday we go to church. And I hated it as a kid. I was like, God, this sucks, I don't want to do this. But you start to learn that, man, there are a lot of people that don't have what I have, and by no means were we like, live in some mansion. We were just like a regular family. But, my youth group used to go down to New York City, and we would like help feed homeless people, just go and give them peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And so I think that was a huge part of it, where that's just what my wiring, that's how I was brought up. I think the other piece is that you get to a certain point where when you're really low, right? When you feel lost, when you're like at rock bottom, or you think it's rock bottom, or whatever it is, and then somebody helps you in some way. Like you read a book, or someone gives you a phone call, or you go to an event, or something happens, and you're like, wow, if it wasn't for that person, if it wasn't for this moment, I don't know what would have happened to me. Like I would not have gotten out of this. It doesn't always happen that way, but I think if it happens once, you start to realize that, man, I could do that for somebody else too. And like at the end of the day, like what are we really doing here if that's not what we're trying to do on some level? It doesn't have to be your full-time thing, but just once a day, or 10% of your time, or 5% of your time, or 1% of your time. And so I think that that's a big one, is just, all of that together. I do think that the best example, I think probably the number one thing that happened to me was with my swim coach when I was a freshman in high school. And I did a podcast episode about this. The basics are, I got cut from the basketball team, and I got brought in the swim team, and because my brother was a swimmer, and I was so bad. I mean, like so bad at swimming. Couldn't dive in the pool, couldn't make it 15 minutes in practice. And our team had not lost a swim meet or the sectional championships in 29 years. So like this is the real deal. I mean, in New York State, I mean, that's no joke. And I was the worst guy on the team, bar none. And about a month went by, and I was just lane one, worst kid on the team. And my coach, who was this Olympic level swimmer, like very 6'6" alpha male, like farmer, just dominating personality, pulls me out of the pool, and there's like 45 guys on the team, so I thought this guy like didn't even know who I was. And he pulls me out, and he just sits me on the seats, and he's just like, I've been watching you, and I just want you to know, I've seen a couple thousand kids go through this program, and you are going to be one of the greatest swimmers that ever swam at this school. And I was like, what are you talking about? I suck at swimming, dude. You know? And I mean, I had no idea. I was a freshman in high school. Nothing like this had ever happened to me. I never felt like this. And he's just like, dude, you have something. I can't explain it, but you just have the gift. And he's like, I will be watching you. I will be helping you. But no matter what happens, just know that you've got, like, I will be here making sure that you live up to that potential. I'm not going to let you get away with not doing that. And I mean, for all I know, he could have told this to like everybody. And I hope he did in a lot of ways. But dude, like that, I went home that night and I felt like I could lift a car. You know, I was so stoked. And like everything changed. Within 2 months, I became one of the top swimmers on the team. By sophomore year, I was like number 3 in the state. Like I didn't even know how to swim. And it was just because this one dude just went out of his way and just dropped the hammer on me. It was like, dude, stop messing around. Like you can do more than this. I'm not going to let you get away with that. And I think that was, and being in a community of guys that all shared that idea. And every day before practice, this was back before, they put time limits on practices. This was back when you'd get to practice at 3:00 and you didn't go home until practice was done. This wasn't, it's
right.
done at 5. Like, no, yeah. This is, and we get to practice and this guy, Ken, the coach, he would sit in front of us and just tell us stories about like some really hard moment in his life and how he got out of it and like why it's worth it to kick ass. And like, we had everything thrown against us that year in the swim team. Like our top swimmers got super sick and they couldn't swim in the championships and we still won. And like all these things kept happening. And he was relentless about getting us to believe that it could happen and that we could make it happen and that it was completely up to us if we wanted it to happen. And I mean, when you're, freshman in high school, we're like 14, 15, I guess, something like that. Like to have someone tell you that, especially as a guy. I mean, I just know what it's like to be on an all guys team. When you have somebody telling you that, it's like, dude, that's like everything, that changes everything. So, I think it was a combination of experiences like that. It just rocks you, man. I mean, even now I think about that. I'm like, fuck yeah. Like I can go like crush it. Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome, man. And they say that a lot of the tenants, and we've also, experienced it, in our lives respectively, and then, from one guest to the next on the show, that a lot of the tenets that make you successful in business are a lot of the same that make you successful in athletics. And now that you're on the other side of it, to flip that context of a little from athletics to business, now that you are indeed a coach on the business side, what are some of the attributes that you see in your clients, your people, that force you to have that conversation with them?
Totally. It's a really good question. And one thing I will say is the year after I graduated, in the winter in Maine, obviously there's no landscaping, nor is there any sunlight or anything cool going on. I went and helped out with the college swim team, and I would go and I would be on the deck trying to coach the sprinters. And that was a really interesting experience to try to, and it made me even appreciate even more what my coach had done. But I think what you learn as an athlete, especially as a competitive athlete, not like, oh, hey, we're doing this so we can go drink beers, like you want to win type of guy, right? And you learn that hard work has a different meaning for competitive athletes than it does for a lot of other people. I think that the word hard work, like when you watch Gary Vee's videos, he's just like hard work, hard work, hard work. And I think that often that goes out to a lot of people and they hear hard work and they immediately think a lot of stress. They think that work means, oh God, I'm piling things on and I I got to do things I don't want to do. And as an athlete, you realize that hard work is more about just grinding and like persevering through the moments that are not easy, but you gotta do the reps, you gotta do the laps, whatever. And so I think that translates into teaching and coaching and things like that in terms of who is naturally just doing the work, but they just need some course correction versus who is looking for a reason not to do the work. Like who's looking for, hey, just show me the blueprint so that I can bypass the 10 years of figuring it out. And there's shades of both in that, but I find that when people come and they're like, this is what I want, or this is where I want to be. And I'm like, all right, cool. Here's what it's going to take. And here's how it's going to happen. And they're like, can you just like send me what you've already done so that I can just do that? I'm like, this isn't going to work out. Like you got to have that institution of that discipline or that idea of, at least I know what it means to work hard and I'm not scared of that hard work. I just need to, maybe I'm not working hard on the right stuff or in the right priority or whatever. I just need to like recalibrate that. That's always the winning, the winning potential. Those people tend to have athletic backgrounds on average. And that's really what I've learned. And there's not a whole lot you can do to instill a work ethic into somebody who doesn't already get it, other than try to dangle carrots as best you can. You can try it, but that's like you work real hard for a week and then you're like, yeah, this kind of sucks. Like, what? I don't really see anything happening right now. Versus the athlete who's like, I know that it's going to take a little while, but if I keep my head down and I make sure that I'm not getting too many blinders on, like this is going to work out.
That's incredible. That's the honest truth, man. And I sort of want to go to one of that post you shared. I believe it was yesterday, and we mentioned it earlier, how you had the bed sitting next to your computer. And you mentioned in the post how at this time you sold an app portfolio worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then what people would have like visualized if they hadn't seen that picture is that you're sitting in this baller mansion penthouse, just sipping Mai Tais and just, rocking it out. But then you just mentioned that to the group that, guys, success doesn't have to be sitting in front of this multi-million-dollar building looking at a beach. It's what you make it. Like nobody can sort of outsource the hustle, so to speak. You don't have to be in this badass office to do the research. And I thought that post was very inspirational, man, because a lot of times, as you mentioned, we think success looks like one thing, and on the outside looking in, it's like you think you have to have this yacht or whatever. But you were saying the hard work that you put in looked like everybody's work environment, no matter what, even though you look like you achieved this massive success. And I think what that post did for me is that it helps relate. It makes it so relatable because a lot of people are going through that situation now. How have you seen that things change in your life? Because I know you live in San Francisco now. How have you seen things change from the beginning of like the hardcore grinding entrepreneur to now? Like after you've reached this success that people look at and like, wow, Carter must be living the baller life. You know what I mean? How are things changed, or are they still sort of the same in that grind mode mentality?
Yeah, totally. And it's funny because, like if you looked at my Instagram account, I'm not trying to blow up my own spot here, but like you probably would be like, dude, this guy's living a sick life, right? Because like that's kind of what Instagram is, and it's fun, and I like taking those pictures. But in reality, I mean, yeah, I've got an office just like everybody else. I love coming to work. The biggest difference between 2012, 2013, and now is that I know what's worth stressing out about and what's not worth stressing out about, and I don't get hung up on stupid stuff that I used to. I also have things that I can look at. Like I have security that I didn't have before that allows me to be like, no, I'm not doing that. Or yeah, I am doing that. And I can be more thoughtful about the things that I do go big on. So while I am still definitely a hustler and I still definitely work really hard and put in a lot of hours, I'm very deliberate about what I do. Like if I'm not producing something, I won't crush 3 more Red Bulls and like power through it. I'll stop and go make a good dinner, go for a walk and get a good night's sleep. And then I'll try it the next day. I won't try to like rush it all. So I think that's the biggest thing that's changed. And, that's just experience and whatever it may be. I do think, though, that similar to what that post was saying, over the years, I've tried so many times to buy my way to the next level, right? A good example of this, and I'm embarrassed to say this, but I got invited to this like super high-end event in LA a couple years ago. It was like a celebrity thing and a fundraiser. And I went out and bought like a $3,000 or $4,000 Armani suit. And it looked baller. Like it was sick. I flew down to LA, met up with my buddy. We went to this gala. And it was cool, but it wasn't that cool. I mean, it was like whatever, right? It was like 3 hours to get like good appetizers, some cocktails, like really attractive people, and like that was it. And then I get home and I was like, why? Like I'm still the same person, but I don't have that $3,500 anymore, and I got this suit that I'll probably never wear again. Like that was not what I was hoping for. And I think that now I think people would walk in and they would see my current situation and be like, dude, I thought you were like a big businessman. I thought you like ran all these companies. I thought you were rolling in cash. Like, what's going on? And I'm like, it's not what you see and what you believe isn't necessarily what produces the results that like I really care about. I love having less stuff so that I can focus on what I'm producing. I can focus on the work. The more things I have, the more stuff I own, on average, the harder it is for me to come up with really good ideas, for me to focus and for me to do that. And, I think that's why, every year I love watching Fight Club again, just rewatching that and just getting into that Tyler Durden mentality of, obviously not that extreme, but, like the things you own end up owning you, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's just it. And it's so easy, man. You start seeing this money roll in and you're like, man, all these, like half of these gurus are telling me, oh, you can, outsource everything, like hire everybody to do everything for you and spend all your money on solving your problems. And then the other half are like, no, stay lean, keep growing, blah, blah, blah. And like, who do you listen to? And I do think that it's different for everybody, but for me, it's been, I tried to be that guy. I tried to be the baller. I tried to get the sick kicks and walk and get the pro photographer. I tried to do it. But it's just not me. And I don't produce the things that grow my businesses when I am that guy. I produce the things when I'm, wearing Lululemon stuff and going home at 5 o'clock and going for runs. And then I get like 4 hours of just like killer creative work in. Like that's what works for me. Not the big houses and all that.
That's dope.
A mentor of mine a number of years ago kind of helped me through that process. And, there's those two extremes, right? Like stay lean and keep growing, or, treat yourself to the nice shit that, potentially ends up owning you, right? And, depending on who you are, there is no right or wrong to that. Mm-hmm. But it was shown to me how to figure out what camp you sit in. And, the example I'll use is Jeff's example. On the background on his computer, he had this sweet Lamborghini or whatever. Mm-hmm. And, when we started this thing off and, we do everything on the computer, I was like, is that what we're doing this for? Like, that's what you want? And yeah, no bias whatsoever. He's like, nah, man, I don't even want that anymore. I went, sat in it, test drove it, and realized that, it was just a sweet fucking car. But after being in it and doing the thing, it really wasn't what I wanted. Mm-hmm. And, to figure out where you're at and what you want you don't have to do what you did and throw $3,500 out the window for a one-time deal. There's a lot of instances in life where, you that sweet ride that you might see passing you by every day on the way to work. What is it to just cruise on down to the dealership and sit in it and figure out if that's what you really want to do? On the flip side of that, I don't think that you would have realized that was indeed not what you wanted had you not thrown away that $3,500 on an Armani suit.
That's the key. I think you nailed it. Is this the reason why I don't have a blog called like Lean Entrepreneur Guy? Like, I'm not preaching the minimalism thing, is because I do think that you need to. It's a important part of the process to make money and figure out for you what it is you want to spend it on. Because I know a lot of people that they make a lot of money and they work 24 hours a day and they love making a ton of money, and they have a house in Tahoe, a house in Hawaii, they have a house in San Francisco, and they are super stoked, right? Like, they are really happy. They got sick cars, they got everything, and more power to them, right? Like, and I also know a lot of people that similar situation, they go and they try it and then they come back to their, regular life or whatever. And they're like, it wasn't what I was expecting. Like, it didn't make me feel the way I thought it would. And then you kind of have this second awakening in life, in entrepreneurial life, I would say, where you start asking yourself, like, what am I really doing here? And I think the hardest question is asking somebody, especially when they're starting off, what happens when you get it, right? What happens when you get the money, when you get the popularity, when you get the success that you're looking for, whatever that may be? What happens then? What changes? And if there's a big change, that's going to be an issue, right? Because like, it's going to be very hard to get there if you're going to change everything once you get it. Like, you can't necessarily fake it to get success and then switch over to autopilot or whatever. But that's also, I know for myself, when I was a young guy, that's the last thing you want to hear. You don't want to hear someone being like, do this for the right reasons, and make sure you give back a lot. And like, bullshit. Like, when you're young and you're hungry, you're just like, dude, show me what works and I will get it. Mm-hmm. And then you get it, and then you got to figure it out for yourself that, all right, here's what's next. But what I would tell people is, ask questions. And ask other people, and listen to podcasts like this and say, there's a lot of people out there saying that, give me the same advice. Maybe there's something to that. And I'm not saying you got to change your course or change your life, but I do think that it's important to have that perspective so that it's not a ton of bricks when you do hit that number or that milestone and you're like, well, what do I do now?
It's completely true, because when you and I had our first coaching call and I was talking about me wanting to outsource all of this stuff, I'm doing like social media vlogging, and you asked me a question that stumped me at the time, and you said, okay, now that you have all this, you're going to have all this free time on your hand from all of these projects, what are you going to fill that time in with? And I was sitting there like, oh shit, like I didn't have a good answer, because you said you have to fill it in with something that's valuable, that's going to lead you to doing something productive, instead of just being in the weeds of doing the minimal crap that you were just trying to get out of. And you said a lot of times is that people get to a point where they achieve the success that they thought, but then they worry about the small details that don't even matter, and they're not worried about creating that higher level business. And that question you asked me, it's funny because I never thought about that before. It was just like, yeah, just get all this off my plate, and whatever comes after that. But it really makes you think deep within yourself. It's like, okay, I need to start looking at, like when I asked you your example of what you started doing, you said you reached out to guys and really learned about investing and doing things like that. And it made me think hard about will I do with this time that's going to be non-operational but pushing me to the next level. And that was really important. So I appreciate that heads up.
Yeah, man. I think that along those lines, I think that there's a shift that happens for entrepreneurs, and I hope I can explain this correctly, but from a mindset standpoint, when you're just getting started or when you're growing, you think about your life in phases, or you think about it in terms of like chapters, or when I hit 100 grand, then I can go do this. And like you're going for that one thing, knowing that you're going to have this next phase. and you get into that next phase, and then you got another goal, and you're like, well, when I hit that, I'm gonna have this next phase. And I think that's how a lot of people approach entrepreneurship. And what people that have, once they go through that once or twice, what they try to tell the other people is, what would your life look like if you didn't have phases? If you're just like, this is going and it's just going to go. Like, don't think about, oh, our app's going to be around in 10 years. Oh, is the internet going to be done in 5 years? Is virtual reality the next big thing? Like, don't think about these emerging markets. Like, what can you do that you will be happy doing for 20 years? And do that. Because the whole, oh, I got to get to this thing and then I'll change and I'll go to this thing, that just drives people crazy, because you just never know when you're there or what you're doing. And it's so hard to change it up. And when you do have those moments of like, man, I could just focus on this one skill set or get really good at this one thing for the next 50 years of my life, and you're stoked about that, it's this huge weight off your shoulders. There's no more pressure. You stop giving a shit about the scorecards. You're just like, I'm just gonna go big on this one thing for a long time, and I don't have to worry about everything else.
Do you think it's because you use the word change a lot with regards to your evolution financially? Once I hit $100,000, I'll be able to do this, and you'll be able to make this change or metamorphosis or whatever. Your life will be different in this tax bracket. Do you think it's an honest, knowing what you know now, that you think it's a legitimate statement to say that the change actually has to come before the money?
No, I think that it's very feasible to make a pile of money and in like not fulfilling ways, right? I mean, there is a formula in the world to make money of like, you put people over here, you put products over here, and you connect them. And like all along that spectrum, there are plenty of ways that are proven to make money. And I think that the internet marketing world is proof that there are plenty of ways to make money that are not fulfilling. And so I absolutely think that if like your family member is really sick and you need to make $50,000, like, don't worry about the fulfilling side. Like, go make 50 grand, like get it done or whatever it may be. Or, you got to pay your rent. Like, go do it. Like, I didn't get fulfilled making lawyers' websites. And that's why I don't go to young people or anybody really and be like, follow your dreams and make sure you go after your passions. I tell them, be smart. Here's the way to do it. Like, and here's my experience. So, hopefully I can help you out. But I do think that it's easy to get to not be able to get out of that, because money's addicting, right? And especially if you spend money. And if you make that first block of money or whatever the success is, you get that first 100,000 followers and you don't have a plan to get out of it, or you don't have a plan to start asking, am I being fulfilled or whatever like that, you're just going to keep doing it, because it's like, you're going to have a bad day and you're like, well, if I just post like a couple sick pics on Instagram, I'm going to get like 80,000 new followers. Like, I should probably just keep doing that, And it's just like, well, it's right in front of me. I should just keep going after this. And so I think that that's the reason why. It's like, you want to break the cycle before it gets you're too in it, right? And without naming names, I will say that there are people I know in the online marketing world that like they can't get out of the business they're in, and they don't know how to just shut it down, and like they can't stop like hoping, like being like, oh man, if I send one more email blast, like I'll make another 10 grand, and like, okay, then I'll stop. And they can't. And this is like a real thing, for a lot of people, versus some people that they just like, they turn off the servers and they're like, I'm done. I'm going to something else. And the bigger you get, the harder it is for that to happen. It doesn't matter like how much money you make. It's just about like how much you attach yourself to that process.
Right.
So interesting. And going into leading off of that, you released an awesome article at the end of 2016 about the top, was it the top 10 books that entrepreneurs should read, or the top 25?
Yeah, top 10.
Top 10. What are some of those books that you recommend, at least like top 3, that somebody listening today could sort of just dive into if they're really looking to do like the whole entrepreneurial journey? And I mean, we'll link this up I think it's a beneficial article. We'll link it up in the show notes. But from your perspective, what are the top 3 from that list that you think somebody would get a lot of value from?
Sure. I mean, definitely the most important business book I've ever read is called The Slight Edge, which is pretty popular among the Blue Cloud community. And it's the idea of compounding effort, where just do something every day for 20 minutes, and in a year, you'll pretty much be able to do anything you want. It's a generalization, but that's the idea. So check that book out for sure. I think that I'm a big fan of reading like amazing stories as a way to learn about. I mean, this comes back to the athlete thing, where you read about badasses or like incredible stories, like you just draw so much from that. So I read a book a long time ago called Shantaram, which is a beast of a book. It's 900 pages. But it's probably the most incredible story I've ever heard of somebody who refuses to believe that people are bad people. And like, he has every reason in the world to believe it. He's in prison, he's in gangs, he's living in it's in India, and it's just this amazing story of good will always win. And I think that reading things like that are important for people in business, because it's so easy to go negative, to read the news, or to get a bad revenue report, or to see your downloads going way down. It's so easy to just get like, oh, it sucks, this isn't going to work. And I think it's important to read books like that, so that you do have that like ever burning coal, like ember inside of you that's like, no matter how bad it gets, realize that there is good here. There's something to keep going for. So that book was awesome. And then I think that, man, off the top of my head, from like completely tactical operational standpoint, I would really recommend people read that book, Launch by Jeff Walker, which, Jeff, I told you about that book. And
yeah, I bought it yesterday.
It's so good. I mean, it's how to launch products. And he just talks about how, like, these average people that just have ideas and they're like, I don't have a product, I don't know what to do. And you follow this formula that he's laid out extremely well, and it works. It's like, just get people, like teach them a lot about it, help them out, provide a great solution, but do it in this focused way. And it's a really terrific way for anybody to go from like, I don't have a clue about anything in business, to I have a community of people, I have revenue coming in, I have the beginnings of something. And I think that process is often the key that pushes the snowball down the hill. So I would really recommend that book too. I think that it's a great way to just, oh my gosh, I could do, like, there's no reason why I couldn't do this type of thing.
That's awesome.
You lay mention to the impactful coaches that you've had in your life, and the community that you've built and been a part of. Are those two elements, coaching and community, pillars of your success above and beyond the what and the how?
I think so. I think the community more than the coaching. I think that coaching it's just like an awesome way to make sure that like there's always like the people at the top, like to make sure that they do get to that next level, right? Because you can't really take a course when you're already at the top, or when you already know a lot of information. You have to create a relationship. And I think that that's how a lot of the big success stories have happened, is being able to get on the phone and talk to people and work with them. So I think that that's been a part of it. I think the community has been huge, because it is and this is aside from like all the marketing side of it, of social proof and having other people being able to say like, I took this and it worked, like that is a huge part of it. But from for me and for the business standpoint, I think it's just it's been a huge validator that what I'm doing is the right thing, or it's working, or it's making a difference in some capacity. I think on a personal level, I look at life in your personal life. I think that there's, at least for me, I should say, but I think this is true for most people. There's your job or your work, there's your relationship, your family, whatever, and then there's your social life, your friends and your, whatever. And I think it's extremely difficult to be crushing it with all three of those at once, right? Like, I don't know anybody who's extremely ambitious, who hangs out with his friends all the time and has an amazing family. Like, it just doesn't really happen that way. And the only time it really can, as far as as much as I've seen, is when you can combine two of those buckets. So you might get a spouse or whatever who works with you in your business, or you can talk on your business a lot, and then you have your friends on the side, or you and your spouse go and hang out with your friends or whatever. And in my case, my job has become part of my social circle, right? I've developed relationships with a lot of these people, which has been awesome, right? I've made so many new friends that I never would have made if it wasn't for that community. And I think in the digital world, that's what's so hard, is that it's hard to meet and like hang out with people when you're working in this world that is like, it's connected, but it's not, right? Like it's all digitally connected. And being able to cultivate actual connections that then lead to either live events or going out to coffee or, video conferences or whatever, like it's something, right? It might not be ideal, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And I think that has been a byproduct of, so I didn't really expect that to happen. And it's been amazing to be able to have that.
That's incredible. Yeah, man, I applaud you seriously for everything that you've done and that you've built, because I think what it's important for people listening to understand is like, not only have you created massive success in your life, but the tips and amount of help that you've given other people have helped people in that Blue Cloud community that you directly influence to create massive businesses within the App Store, outside of the App Store. I mean, just in their life, quit their jobs and become more successful. I mean, you've really developed such a positive community of the people who are just willing to share and help one another, man. I just want to applaud you for that, dude, because you don't see that a lot of times. And I think just seeing you from when I first heard about you and reading your article, it's continued to grow and evolve. And you're throwing your live seminars, which are incredible. If you guys want to, we'll link it up in the show notes, but check out the live seminars that you throw, man. Like the one in Hawaii, when you were mentioning like the slight edge effects of going for that run in the morning on the lava rocks and feeling the power of that island. But you just mentioned like these little steps of waking up and interacting with these people today. It may not benefit you right now, but down the long road, these relationships, this run can have a massive impact, man. So, man, congrats on everything you've done, and thank you for everything, bro. It's been super inspirational and awesome to work with you.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's likewise. I mean, it's been awesome to meet, people like yourself and people in the community, and I think the theme of those events and of the community is that idea of relentlessly helping people. This idea of, if I tried as hard as I could to help somebody else, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, what's the worst thing, right? I'm going to be exhausted. They're going to steal my idea. Like, no, like it never happens that way. And what the upside is, you get this whole bullpen of people that's pulling for you that wanna hook you up back. So it's cool, man. It's been a lot of fun, and it's continuing to be a lot of fun. So thanks for being a part of it.
Yeah. No, it's been fun getting to know you over the last hour or so. You not only done great things for Jeff, but you're doing even greater things for your community at large. And it's awesome that from where you started, and doing the unsatisfying stuff to pay bills has evolved into a model where the main driver behind income generation is paying it forward and helping people bypass the mistakes that you've made, and not reinventing the wheel, but simply, I use the word simply lightly, repurposing the stuff that's already existing to kind of, assist them in getting out of their own way. And we know that you're super busy, but I wanted to make sure that we shared that appreciation with you. And as is customary on the show at this point, we want to know two things that really drive home some of the concepts that we've talked about today. And you can answer them on any level, mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever works for you. But two questions. What's one thing that you do each and every single day to get the ball, to feed yourself, get the ball rolling, get that motivational fire going, light that ember? And then what's something that you do each and every day to fuel yourself and keep that ember lit into the wee hours of the night, as a lot of us burn the candle at both ends?
Yeah, totally. That's a really good question. So the fueling thing, and this is pretty recently, I'll give you an example about this, is waking up. So I deleted all the social media apps off my phone except for Instagram. And on Instagram, I only follow like surfers, Red Bull, drone people, like a handful of people that are like it's no bullshit. It's like just awesome stuff. And so I wake up and I only check, the only things I see are like really sweet things. That's it. I've recently started going running in the morning, which has been like outside. And I think that's the key, at least for me, is being outside. And I'm so lucky in San Francisco. You go to see the Golden Gate Bridge every morning. It's like amazing, right? But I think that whole process has been really amazing. But I do think the key is it doesn't happen like that. It takes me like 2 hours to slowly get up into this, okay, I feel good, I'm positive, I'm ready to go. And for a long time, I wanted it to happen so quickly that's when I would start just like, okay, first thing I do, slam coffee, check Facebook, check my email, check the revenue. And I would just want that rush, because I'd want to hit the day. I'd want to be like, all right, I'm up at 5 o'clock and I gotta make the most of this day. And I think that like it takes me longer to fuel than I previously realized. Maybe I'm just turning into an old man or whatever, but like that's been a huge shift, right? And like just giving yourself the chance to get up, and then you start making really good decisions about what you're eating for breakfast and what you're putting in your body and what you're putting into your brain with your phone and all that sort of thing. So that's what I would tell people is, it's good to wake up early. It doesn't mean you have to be firing on all cylinders within the first 10 minutes of waking up. Like, give yourself a chance to like ease into it, and then get going, and then see what kind of decisions you make. So I think that's been amazing. But if it was anything, I would say being outside early in the day is a game changer. It's amazing. And then the fuel, I think that having things that no matter what, if you stopped everything you were doing and you had one thing you can work on, that there's no scorecard involved, is really important. I think that for me, it's like shooting videos or shooting drone videos and just editing them down and just posting them on some YouTube channel and gets like 12 views, because I don't care if a lot of people see it or not. I'm just doing it because I really like doing it. Or, it could be a number of things like reading books or whatever that is for you. But I think having something that you can do completely freely and not think about, well, I got to do this the right way. I got to measure how well I'm doing this. I need this to grow me. I need this to move me forward in some way. I think it's so critical. And I think it's really hard to have that when you're like working really hard and you want things to happen really quickly. But if you don't have that balance, if you don't have something that you can get that release from, you just burn out. And I think that along the lines of relentlessly helping people, it's like you have to relentlessly go after balance, like, because you can't stay with the foot on the gas all the time. Similar to what Feed Me Fuel Me is all about, is you got to have work that is not about your success. It's just about you and doing something that you're stoked about. So that's what I would say. I think that, like making movies or whatever.
That's dope, man. I love it. And then before we get out of here, where can this community go to support you and everything you have going on in your personal life, business, and any other initiative or projects that you have going on? Where can we go to support you?
It's a good question. So obviously go to bluecloudsolutions.com if you're interested in the app business. And we do a little bit about entrepreneurship, but I think there's just a lot of really cool posts on there. There's one post, I'll send you a link, that I think would work really well I wrote like 3 years ago about getting into a fight and going on this like 19-mile run on a weekend.
I remember that one. Yeah.
Sick post, right?
Yeah.
So I think that would be a cool place to start. If you want, on my personal site, carterthomas.com/feed me, I'll put up, like, you can opt in for an email newsletter, because I'm always doing like random stuff. If you're interested in business and projects that aren't about apps, just about what's up, that could be a cool way to stay in touch. And then on Instagram, CG Thomas, check it out. I think you could get some cool content on that.
Dope, man.
Well, hey, man, much appreciated. I think that you've definitely enlightened our listeners. You've no doubt enlightened us. So, we appreciate all the value that you bring to the planet Earth, man. Your presence is definitely felt. You got a good thing going, and I challenge you to keep going and do it bigger, man. There's a net that you can cast, and there's a lot of people out there yet to be captured. So keep doing what you're doing, man. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and thank you guys for making this all happen. I mean, I know you guys are reaching a lot of people, and you're just going to continue to reach it. So, like, similar to you guys, just keep grinding, keep doing it. This is the right thing. It's a good thing.
Appreciate you,
much
brother.
Appreciated, man. And for everybody listening today, go out and support Carter's mission and check out some of his initiatives. He's definitely got a lot of guidance to give, and he's definitely a voice that needs to be heard. And as always, we definitely appreciate being a part of your journey, as we love you being a part of ours. And until next time, guys, keep exposing that elephant, and feed me, fuel me. Later.
Peace. And that'll do it for this week's episode with our special guest, Carter Thomas. If you want to see everything that Carter has going on, please go check out the full show notes at feedmefuelme.com. Also, be sure to connect with us on social media, including Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter at feedmefuelme. We would love to hear from each and every one of you. We're excited to announce the Feed Me Fuel Me Summit on July 10th, 2017 in Sedona, Arizona. Our keynote speaker will be Forrest Lustos. If you haven't had a chance to hear Forrest's story yet, be sure to listen to his episode number 19, Mastering the Superficial and Becoming Exceptional. It's guaranteed to fire you up and make you take action. We've released event details on the website, and the event is only 3 weeks away. Go to feedmefuelme.com, click on the link 2017 Summit, purchase your ticket, and we'll see you there. If you found this episode inspiring in any way, please rate, comment, share, and subscribe so we can continue on this journey together. Also, be sure to share it with your friends and family on social media, including Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter, or any other social platforms that you use. We really appreciate you spending your time with us today and allowing us to join you on your journey. We would love to hear your feedback on this episode, as well as guests and topics for future episodes. To end this episode, we would love to leave you with a quote by George Bernard Shaw. Don't wait for the right opportunity. Create it. Thank you again for joining us, and we will catch you on the next episode.